not here. USDA.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you for joining us for the 9th grade seminar. We are honored to have Dr. Dath Mita, Senior Crop Analyst at the USDA Foreign Agriculture Service as today's speaker. Dr. Mita will be presenting on the topic Methodology to Estimate Crop Production Using Satellite Imagery Analysis. Following the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session and a discussion where we'll be joined by Shoshana Griffiths, Agriculture Attaché, and Yuna Jan, Agriculture Specialists, both from the U.S. Embassy in Korea. Now, please give a warm round of applause for Dr. Mita.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Is that okay? Right. Doesn't work, I'll come. I'll come. Um,
And my... Oh, yeah.
okay, okay. Oh, I see. Getting complicated now. Okay, well, thank you so much for inviting us and accepting us here with you to discuss about what we do. And I'll be helped by my colleagues that are here because from the region here. The subject that I'm trying to discuss with you is kind of broad. So I think much of it will depend on questions that then this it is you can hear me now? Oh, okay. So the Foreign Agriculture Service agency of the United States Department of Agriculture, we are, our task is to assess crop production all around the, the globe, all around the earth, and we have divided the world into about 12 regions, and each region we have an analyst who is responsible for that particular region. And I happen to be here because I'm responsible for what we call East Asia. That's China, North and South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, that region. Now, I'm only responsible for crop production. So within our foreign agriculture service, we have two other divisions that deal with the economic part of that and also the policy part of that. And so we have what we call a spreadsheet of product supply and demand. So we look at the supply side and then the demand side. Our group, the International Production Assessment, we only deal with the production aspect on the supply side. The stocks on the supply side, that other groups or two other teams deal with that, and then on the other side of the equation, on the demand side, they deal with that. So I only do the production, okay? And in the production, because it's international, we don't get to be on the ground oftentimes to assess or come up with estimates. So we typically, predominantly, maybe 80% of our work to assess the crop production in terms of area and yield, we're using satellite data. And you might know that for when it comes to the satellite data, all the civilian satellites that have been launched by NASA in the United States, all those satellites, we get the data. And we also contract or purchase data from all the satellites that are in Europe, like Sentinel and others. We purchase those that are free. We still bring them in our toolbox. But we also purchase data from the Indians. So the Indians, all their satellites that are civilian satellites, we get that data either on contract or on some kind of official arrangements. So we try to get as many satellites that are out there as is possible. Okay, so that's the starting point. Now, the satellites, when we get the data that has been captured by our satellites or the international satellites, depending on the level at which we are focusing, we either use that data just for visualization, just to use human intelligence to look at the image and then say, okay, this is the pattern, this is what's happening. Once we see a pattern, then we get into the modeling. Because if there's no pattern, if there isn't a pattern, it's difficult to develop a model just based on something that's just a random. So, but if something we see within the image, the satellite image, that is a pattern, or it looks like it's a systematic something, then we start going into our modeling. So not all the time that we input the data from the satellites into our into the models. Now, what I have here, you said I can touch this. Manipulate. This is where it comes. You cannot. Can you hear me with this? Yes. With this, when you go to this decision support system, which we call Crop Explorer, what you get here is what we have produced as a product. You just accept it as it is. But if you want to have real contact with some of the data, so you can put your own scenarios, we have what we call GADAS. That's the Global Agricultural Disaster Assessment system, and I should probably get a chance to show you that one. So that's what we do. So I am responsible for here. So I'm responsible for these countries here. My other colleagues are responsible for what you see over there. So if I go to Korea, okay, now this is, I don't know which.
I will click. Right?
I don't know which. That. Okay, so if you go to Korea, you find that this is what we have put there. Okay, so you can see we have different, if you want to look at precipitation, can you? Yes, I can go to precipitation here. It will show you that it's supposed to show, different type of, okay. So this is the information we're ingesting in the system almost hourly or daily for precipitation. So you can look at where they painted, that's every 10 days, oops. Yes, so you have the painted 10 days, monthly, 2 months, etc., etc. far as precipitation is concerned. So you can get that data for whatever region you want. Temperature, we're also inputting temperature here, the average temperatures, maximum, etc., and even the heat damage. We're also putting all the information about soil moisture, okay, in this one. So you can see this is coming from SMAP, which is a satellite, data there, and then we have, all these that you get there. So we're processing this continuously, and you can also choose if you want to go back to whatever season. So this is not only the current, but you can go, right now we have only gone up to, we're looking at the 5-year period, but you can also go beyond that, okay? And then to the additional resources, these are the, what we are writing. We try to develop crop calendars. We also provide, we are also providing, so we're providing all this. Now, all this is free. Anyone, anywhere in the world, they can get that data. Now, if you want to get the numbers behind the data, which sometimes you cannot download here, then you have just to let us know. Then we'll get you to where you can go behind the scenes and download the data. Okay. Now, when it comes to satellite data here, for instance, if you go here, then if you're looking for NDVI, which is derived from satellite data products here, this is what we have. So we have all sorts of data that we are putting in there. Now, as far as our estimates, because we are estimating the area, the yield. So we have models behind the data that helps us to determine the area. For selected countries like South Korea, North Korea, and other parts of the world, we are doing land use, land cover, or crop ID mapping every year. So we are monitoring how much area for specific crops, not just general agriculture, but for specific crops. We're monitoring that and quantifying that here. So we do that. The only problem is that in some areas, like for North Korea, we might not have ground truthing information to cross-check exactly how accurate our data is. But what we have done with North Korea is that we developed our models by training them using information from South Korea, because you're neighbors or in the same region. So we think if this model works here and we check with the information that you're providing, then our assumption is that since we're using that to train the models, the approach we do for North Korea, then we're thinking we should be within reason, but still more without cross-checking or measuring stuff on the ground, we might be missing a lot of things. This is why sometimes it's important to talk to you here about your experience or what information you are getting from there. So that's one of the platforms. But like I said, a lot of our work, we're using satellite data. Now, our satellites that we're using are starting from a spatial resolution or a pixel size of maybe a meter all the way to 30 meters. Now, depending on what the area, the location, the crop, we choose which satellite we think will give us a lot more detailed or sufficient information to deal with that. That's the choice. That's why we have like, 20, 30, 40 different types of satellites that we're picking depending on what we want. Yeah. Let me pause there. So maybe I should, get questions, then I can go into specifics, because I don't know exactly what you'd want me to cover, but I think through the questions, I think I can, respond to that. Now, for one thing, you have to know, maybe you already know, is that we provide the production, the area and yield monthly. Now, in other countries, I don't know about South Korea, that might be just a program or a project that will come here and there. But in the United States, this is the law. Before the 12th of each month, we have to provide area, yield, and production estimates for each and every country in the world. It doesn't matter how big they are, whether they bring their product on the market or not. But we have to give the government, by law, the estimate of especially the major crops monthly. So that's the law. Maybe we can take some questions and then I can
report the kind of the crop production and yield and the planting area to the government or Congress is every month by law. So that is how do you evaluate the test accuracy? Is maybe you are located in a state. How do you? What is a embassy? Is help you evaluate the test? How do you adjust? What is and also in Korea is very delicate. Have the agriculture outlook, our production and the price. But it is we are very the accuracy of our forecast. So the how what is your you forecast Japan, Taiwan. So how people are sensitive test.
So that's a very good question, and we always get that question. Now, let me separate here. So we don't provide the accuracy, because accuracy depends on what is your what are you comparing it to? Whether it's on the ground and what you have, then you work out the accuracy. But in the because all these numbers are reported in the World Agriculture Supply and Demand Estimates, WASDE. Now, in the WASDE, at the back end of this, what we provide is just the confidence level, not the accuracy. So we're saying that, for instance, we say that 7 out of the 10 chances are that 7 out of 10, this is where the number should be. So we're just giving you the confidence level and the confidence interval for each crop, but not the accuracy, because with accuracy, then we're saying, okay, what was the benchmark for our accuracy? Does that make sense?
So there is, I just, I asked, I explained. At first, I just, nice product. I will, but it's I just, but it's 1 month later. Here we have the actual. But market is a response. Yes. Market act. Forecast. Farmers. Also is a we test mother evaluate. Don't know exactly how much after one market. Yes, man, criticize why your forecast wrong, and someone is have a responsibility on the long forecast. So I'd like to ask you how to adjust the
So,
forecast.
yeah, again, this is a very complex situation that we always find. But in our estimates, in our focus, we are not projecting, say, conditions that haven't happened, like the temperature, soil moisture, that hasn't happened. We're not looking at that. We're just saying, to date, given this amount of precipitation that has happened, given this soil moisture, given these temperatures, given these conditions, and based on our models, this is where the crop should be. We're not bringing the focus like meteorologists or weather people will say in the 7 days this is how much precipitation will be there, the temperature. No, we don't look at it. We're just looking at what has happened to get it, because the crop we're reporting has what has it responded to, not what it will respond to. Now, again, so the market would look at what we're saying the crop should be given these conditions. Now, as the conditions are dynamic, they're changing, they are fluid, we will change that for the next reporting period. But for the reporting period that we're reporting now this is what this crop has experienced. And therefore, this is where the yield should be, and this is where the area usually don't have much problem, because the area usually, yes, but the yield, we're saying that the crop has responded to these conditions to date, not projecting what's going to happen in the future. To date, this response gives us these quantities. That's how we're approaching that. So we don't bring in our weather guy who says, oh, in 7 days, this will happen, the temperature will be this, because the crop doesn't see that, doesn't have the memory of that. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, so let me see if I can something.
Bring that up, I can add a
Yes,
bit
please.
more
Yes.
I can add information about how we interact with our like Dr. Washington. So as he mentioned, the law requires the estimate every month. So we'll come up with an initial forecast spring for the year that is just from planting. And that gets updated every month. So as we get closer to the harvest, it becomes more accurate.
Yeah.
And we're updating information from the satellite, but also we update initial estimates, but what you're developing at CRAE. So maybe initially we only have the planting and survey, but throughout the season we get more information that we add in, updated that way. Then once you have the official harvest, we update estimate. It's living, it's evolving, and to your point about the market sense, it's absolutely, and that is actually historically why that law was developed. There was a crisis in the 70s. Yeah, where there was inaccurate information about grain production, and there was a shortage of grain as a result, and a lot of markets advantage of this law came about to provide more objective world production.
And the demand situation in Japan correctly, and so right now is rice price in Japan is very high, because right now there are shortage of the supply. This year. Do your model is forecast Japanese rice is quite well?
Yeah, I would say reasonably well, because we haven't had, because here's the tricky part. When we project or forecast a production, let's say, of South Korea. We expect, and we're telling you that this is what our models, or this is where we've arrived. We're expecting a reaction from you or from your government to say, no, that is not correct. This is the correct, and then we go into it, but we don't get anything. Just accepted this out there, so we're saying we must be doing something good. Or because you see, there's nobody to cross-check us or to sit us down and say, oh no, this is wrong. Or this, if it's not wrong, maybe this is, so we're saying, let's talk about the area of agreement in terms of number, or area of disagreement. If there's a disagreement in the numbers, the national experts and what we produced, let's talk about what is the reason for the disagreement. So show us how you arrived there, or show you how we arrived there. And then we can say, oh, I think this is where we need to, to compromise here. But again, going back to the yield, I was talking about we are measuring what the crop has responded to date given the conditions. And one of the assets we're using is the NDVI, the Normalized Difference Vegetation Index. Now, you see that the other graphs that I have here from 21, 22, 23, that is a crop that was already harvested. And we have reports either from the national governments plus our models. We have created that, and now we have adjusted our numbers based on what was finally reported in the country and what we have. So you find that these graphs are indicating what already happened. And then we tie each one of these to the production number or the productivity. Now, the red is the current one. Now, we're looking at the current one almost being in the same ballpark with the other 3 years. So we'll adjust or make an assumption, say that our yield should probably be on average yield, because we don't see anything other than this, vegetative stage here. But as we go into grain filling, if it's rice, etc., for this region here, we see that everything seems to be on average. So if our models are giving us a range from this to this, and then we're saying this is the average, we're checking, is the model really, telling us about this average? If it's, compliant with that, then we start think we are pretty well. So this is just to cross-check that. Okay, and this is all based on the satellite data. Okay, so but I understand that the accuracy is something that's tricky, because you have to have a benchmark, whether you're using a simulation model or a statistical model or a mathematical model. You have to have a benchmark to cross-check your accuracy, which oftentimes we don't have, and then we just rely on what we have here. Okay, I just wanted to bring this up because you'd have that. These are the different kind of, decision-making systems that we have. I mentioned about the, GADA system. This is where you can actually, if you have a question about, like the question said, how accurate are you and so on, you can interact with this system, assuming it's going to come up, where you can put scenarios. Say, we have put a scenario of saying this is how much precipitation to date. Now, you can put a scenario here to say, what if the precipitation was below average moving forward, or above average? What if there was flooding of this much? This system here will answer that question, because it will project. It will have a projection of what if scenarios. Well, the previous system that I showed you, it's not projecting the if scenarios. You cannot interact with him with your questions, but this system should. And as you can see here, you can pull out all the weather data from there. You can pull out different kind of data in a region, and then when you go to analytics, you can analyze that. You can go to, say for instance, if you had floods that are happening, and you say, okay, the flood level in this area where they grow rice is at this level. You input there, and then you see agricultural areas affected. Then, it will pull out questions here, and it will map that and say, okay, in that region, if this is the amount of flooding at this level, this is the likely amount of specific crop, say rice, that will be affected. Then you work out your way down to say, okay, if this amount of the area has been affected, how much will that cut into the production itself? This is the system that will help you answer those questions. Again, not 100%, but at least it is getting you to that space. Now, I don't know about most of you here, but I always believe that if there's a guesswork, if somebody is just guessing, and I have half of this group expert guess. Half of this group, non-expert guess. I'll go with the expert guess. Although the experts did not, I mean, it's just their guess. But the fact that these are experts, they're getting their guess estimate is based on other information that they know. So I'll go with that. So I guess to us, we're saying that we've been doing this, for quite some time. We have these models, whatever. Now, assuming it's just an expert guess, compared to a non-expert guessing, we're saying, trust us, we're probably much closer to the real situation than probably the other group. But again, every time you read or you take our reports, I think the best thing is to cross-check with what information you have, how are your models, what your experts are coming up with, and compare that. Now, should there be a big, disagreement in the one, feel free to contact us and say, hey, in this area, I think you're consistently being wrong by this magnitude. Because with that, that's the input that we can either bring it back in our models and adjust our, maybe how we initialize the model. Because one of the problems that we have is our cropping calendar. We tend to get the national cropping calendar instead of specific location cropping calendars. So we are initializing our model on average planting date. Instead of saying, okay, this crop here, this is when they plant. Because the difference in a week in terms of planting, and you're initializing your model a week earlier, definitely you're going to land up a different, level. So I think when it comes to the crop calendars and how we initialize our models, I think that's an area where we need to do a lot more instead of just a generalized national, calendar.
한 가지 말씀을 실질적으로 예측하고 이제 다만 질문하신 그거를 어떻게 그래서 저희가 뭐 국가별로 각 정부 기관물이 그래서 그런 어떻게 뭐 시나리오에 따라서 만약에 기관에서 레포트가 다르다라고 하면 잘 마련이 내 케이스로는 별로 적은 없는.
I'm showing these different platforms because they'll be giving you different stuff. You're free to question, because we're running models behind this. I'm looking at a surface, soil moisture by SMAP, showing that for this date, for this period, September 5, like it's drier here, much more better there, so forth. But this is one model. So you can actually look at this and say, is the model really reading the right dates, the right stuff? Because when we input this into the actual model to come up with a yield, if this reading that is dry here, it's wrong, then it's wrong. But again, we have to know at what crop is actually there, and at what stage it is. Because if the crop is at grain filling, maybe maturity close to harvest, probably this doesn't affect anything. Probably this is even better, because now the conditions are not as wet and the crop doesn't need that much. Again, we have to look at the cropping calendar, what crops we are looking at, and so on and so forth. And then you can compare this model to another, say CPC, soil moisture departure from normal. CPC is showing that, although it's different, but it's showing again that this area is dry. So we have different ways of comparing the data that we have before, and then we'll run our models behind the scenes, the CPC, product, using the, SMART product, which is the satellite, and then see how different is the output. And then that gives us a range. This is the ranges from, and therefore we have to come up with a point estimate, and with somewhere we have then to say, okay, this is the range we're getting from the different models as far as how the crop is responding to moisture conditions. Therefore, where should we put this crop at? Now that becomes a professional decision, not really something that the model will tell you exactly where to put it. And this is why we have the World Agriculture Outlook Board with the economists from ERIS, ARIS, and others. We sit down and say, okay, this is what the range is. But given the conditions on the ground, and of course our experts here on the ground, they'll tell us where how the crop is responding. We say, oh, maybe the model, although this is the range, maybe we should put it closer to the minimum or close to the maximum. So this one is daily. So you can go and change here to say you want for the month. Then it will run and tell you for now, because we're in September. September hasn't finished as a month, but August did. So what you get here at the end of August is this is the situation for the month. And again, you can see that even for the daily one, it is still indicating that. Now, the question becomes, what is driving this? See, because this is just soil moisture. Is this being driven by, the precipitation? Or is it being driven by temperature in order to come up with this? So we have to do a sensitivity analysis as to which factor is contributing to this question here. Is it the temperature? Or is it the precipitation itself? We have to work out all those. And the sensitivity analysis is done behind the scenes by other models as well.
오기 전 보셨을 를 분석. 그건 아예 RDA 굉장히 넓은 벼면 이런 거
Now, in America, under the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, we have, NAS, the National Agricultural Statistics Service. Their mandate is to do crop forecasting and estimates just for within the country. Now, they have two systems where they do the typical traditional surveys, where they, survey farmers depending on what crop they're planting, but they also do complement that with satellite data as well. So they have two systems that are checking each other. One in which is totally based on surveys, where and within the surveys they have three systems. What we call list frame, where every farmer in America is on the record. So and they have a contact, so they can contact a farmer or pull out a sample from the list frame and call them or go visit with them. The other frame is what they call it's based on it's what we call the area frame. So the area frame is based on land planting intensity in different regions. So that's based on on satellite data to say, okay, this crop, say if it's wheat, is mostly grown here, 80%. So they will target their sampling to say, out of the 400 farmers that we need, we want half of it or more come from this. So they draw in it's a stratified sample, but within the strata, then they'll have a randomization of the farmers there and contact those farmers to talk about. And then they have a hybrid system. So what I'm saying here nationally, which you people are doing nationally, I don't know what how you're doing that. Is that you're directly contacting the farmers? How are you doing your sampling? What is the sample size and the frequency? But NAS does that. Now, on our international side, we don't have the list frame sample because that we don't have the contacts of the farmers that we can talk to. But we rely on the area frame to say, okay, in South Korea or North Korea, rice is mostly grown in these provinces. Therefore, let's target our modeling in this province. That's how we're doing this, And even within a province, we know that much of the crop is maybe in the north, whatever. So that gives us a strata. So we do a stratification on that and say, okay, we're going to target our models to draw numbers from here and run the model. So we run the models and then aggregate that based on that, sampling frame. So my question, I guess, you mentioned that you do survey, and I think you're talking about cut and measure kind of system, about 100 farmers. Now, how do you draw that sample? Do you just randomly pick up the farmers or, okay. So,
we contract the farm, so that we contract the maybe 10 square meter, so that we'd like how many rice they plant on the land, and what is a planting growing situation. We check every month and we forecast, and also we'd like we have the contract farmers, so that we monitoring by phone,
Yes.
by internet. And also we have the model of the short-term model and the long-term model together, and we update them. So for example, like a Bayesian style, so we
Yes.
update the field. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you are policy advisors to the government, and you're looking at the prices. Of course, you're looking at the production. Now, when you do a report, are those publicly available, or you just send that to the government
So
and it's up to the
it is very sensitive.
Okay.
For example, right now is inflation is time is we open the data public, but is sometimes we are not. It is 100% accurate. Sometimes is agricultural price, the opening date.
Okay.
We just for the opening date.
Now, you realize that at a global market level,
Yeah.
where people are exchanging the product and agricultural commodities,
Yeah.
a huge percentage of the traders there, they are looking at our numbers.
Yeah.
So one would think that in the interest of making sure that your commodity, if it's going on the international
yeah,
market, we should also have that data so that we shouldn't underestimate or overestimate your commodity, because then the price either go down or we're exaggerating it. And if you, I'm sure nationally, the traders probably will respond to that, but at an international level, they are looking at our data, and if it's wrong and we don't have a benchmark to cross-check that, but the price will be determined by what USDA is
so
putting out there.
Open the data. Data mostly, all data. We open the all data, but it's sometimes it's a bit. We time of the opening.
Yes.
US data.
Yes.
Yeah. So but it is all data is a public data.
Public data.
So that you
That's
can get the data in. And also, I think is RDA is a Rural Development Administration, analyze the crop mix. How crop move, for example, how rice field award, so how we army to analyze climate change. Therefore, is maybe Korea government sent the cultural satellite.
That's a group but because we had a group from the, is that what they say, the National Satellite Center? Yes. Yes, they came last month, end of July, I should say. They visited with us and we went through our protocols, our procedures, how we're using the satellite data at different levels. And after that, they also went to meet with the National Agricultural Statistics Service, and then they went to meet with ARS, Agricultural Research Service, and other groups, because they're just developing this new team, like you said, because they're expecting to launch the civilian, agricultural, monitoring satellites pretty soon here. So they're just preparing the groundwork, and would like to be a participant in that, so that we can, contribute at least how we came up to be where we are, the mistakes we started with, the strength that we have come up with, so that maybe they don't have to go through that kind of, situation. And hopefully we might get, a collaboration at a certain level to, work with them, because when you do better in your forecasting, we're also doing better. See, because we now have at least a partner that we can cross-check, given almost the same kind of product based on the same resource. We can cross-check, oh, this is what the Koreans now are coming up with, given their satellites. That's what we're coming up. Then, at least we have a starting point to discuss that. So we're wishing, RDA, the best in this in that adventure, because we don't get that happening most across the world. So we are hoping that we can work or share that kind of experience.
얘기하셨는데 까지 조금만 더 또 마저 처음 초반에는 뭐잘 아시겠지만 NA 자료로 과 컨텐츠 NASS 가지 역할. 받으려고 말하면 안 돼. 만약에 크레이스 전수가 아닌 것으로
And who conducts that? Okay. USB is what? We change that now to 10 years. I mean to 5 years. Yes, now it's in 5 years. So take this. We're doing it. Wanted to is this is what we call the crop explorer, and we try to break down. This is for rice, and these are the percentages of rice that we're reporting to for each one of these provinces here. However, now this data is based on your national data. It's not based on our data. So we pull out from Korea Stat their breakdown, and that's what we are putting here. These are the percentages that I believe these are metric tons total. So metric tons, and out of that, we are saying that 21% is happening there and so on. But again, that is based on just what is reported by statistics here. So if these numbers are wrong, maybe we haven't updated. Try to update them. Time you release. We do that for each and every country on their own, the exception of North Korea, we're using our own, data because we don't get reliable data there. But for the rest of the countries, the breakdown you see for each and every crop based on the national data. Yep. So that's what we call, this is a rice, to break that down. Again, you can find that when you pull out this and you go to your spatial data, these are the different decision support systems. The one I just pulled out, the commodity explorer, that would break it down by provinces or subnational level. If you're looking for flood monitoring, we have that. I'm gonna go sit down if you have any questions. Like I said, I wasn't very sure what exactly. That's why I was just going. Yes. Centers of agriculture also now. They would send that production data to PRS, the service, Kansas. So those ones, because the is now pricing, forecast based on, and while our group, us, we're doing it, our projections are the service, PRS, with 10 years. They're telling you the trend coming 10 years. Ourselves don't go there.
저희 5분간 휴식하고 이후에 회의 이어가도록 하겠습니다.